Good morning, traders. This is Perry Wilkey with StartupTrading.com. It is 8:41 a.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday, June 10th, 2020, FOMC Day. Uh, though they're not going to cut rates, there might be a lot of questions and answers about what else are they going to buy for us, because, we need more money. So, as we look back at yesterday's action, we can see that the previous day, the Russell printed some pie in the sky levels. So in other words, some trades went off after the bell closed, before the session closed, that were above the bell high, and then all of the futures also closed above their value on Monday. So as we look at Tuesday, then we can see where the value areas for the Russell right leg down, almost all the action entirely below Monday's low. And then if we look at the NASDAQ, right, as it's printing its 10,000 finally, going up, and we had pointed out in the for the members of the newsletter, and I pointed out again yesterday morning when I did this, that 9,800 to 9,820 was a level of congestion, and that level held. In other words, it was like a bull-bear line, and a lot of people mistake support and resistance for a single fine line that's down to a tick. It's usually an area of several points. It's not, just a fine line going across. So as we look, support and resistance is different than entries and exits, right, for technical analysis. So as we look at the ES, it also had a level. It was about 4.5 points wide, and it really, went back and forth above that level, tried to hold above it, tried to get below it with not much success, but really was an inside day. Most of the day was spent inside the value area, a little bit below, printed a new low, and we'll get into that low in a minute. And if you look at the Dow, almost the entire day spent inside of value as well. So, looking at the charts, we had bearish for the Russell yesterday, neutral for the Dow and the ES, and bullish for the NASDAQ. On the 15 or the 5 to 60 day time frames, everything is bullish. Today is the FOMC decision day or whatever, like they're really going to do something. We had CPI this morning that really didn't do anything either way for the markets. It was pretty much a yawner. And then we're going to have the FOMC statement at 2 and the press conference at 2:30. This will have questions and answers. The statement may have some dribble in it, and I'm sure there'll be a volatility event regardless, but it'll be the questions and answers that really have the market on edge, right? There will be people parsing the statement for changes and spelling mistakes. No, I'm just kidding. They'll be parsing for adjective changes. So algos will be doing that because they have nothing better to do. And then we'll have unemployment claims tomorrow, and we'll get into more of that tomorrow. And then, so if you look at the range from yesterday, the session, right, the overnight action set the range 41 points. That was also the session range. So we stayed inside the Globex session yesterday. Bell to bell trading was 30.25, and the first hour was 14 points. If you look, the ES was slightly positive for the year and slipped back 0.68% for the year. The NASDAQ is up, I'm sorry, that was for 1 day. So let me get down to year to date. So for year to date, the ES slipped back to 0.73 behind. NASDAQ is up 14%. The Dow is down 4.5 basically, and the Russell is down 10 now. Looking at the previous day, you can see the only thing that was positive was the 10,000 NASDAQ. Looking at the charts, right? So we still have outperformance on the Russell. 10 days, it's actually the Dow. 15 days Russell, 20 days Russell, 60 days Russell, and year to date the NASDAQ by a long shot, right? So it is the aforementioned FOMC day, and as of yesterday's close, because Jay Powell said that we will not go negative on rates, so the only way to go from zero is up, and likely that won't be today, but because they can't price in below zero, there are some traders that are pricing in a 15% probability of a rate hike going into today, which means there is no chance of a rate hike. So now that we've squashed that. Looking back at yesterday's distribution, there really wasn't anything of note. Technically, this lines up with the value area. For the NASDAQ, you can really watch the point of control from yesterday. So slightly bullish above, slightly bearish below the point of control. And then if we look at the overnight session so far, 34.25 points. I'm showing last Friday's session, right, on this, and we'll get into some fibs. But as we look at the sequence that I'm looking at, it's actually from this 830 bar high to the high is the sequence that I've been following, and I think that is in play. That's what held the 61.8 to the tick yesterday. This 31.90. It was the low of the session exactly during the bell. We got close to a retest but didn't touch it, and we've been basically bouncing across these fib lines like ping pong balls ever since we made this high on Monday night's session going into Tuesday's session, so yesterday's Globex session. So as we look at this, right, this draw, if it breaks, where I think that we go is basically down to the 64 half if it breaks, or down to 48.75. There is an 80 buy in between, so the previous, the anchor that I'm using, if this one breaks, takes this back down to 31.29 half. So if you look at that, if we change it to that, you got 80 half is the next buy with a line in the sand at 68.37. That still doesn't take you below where this FOMC breakout was last week, right? So we basically started from 31.33 half on FOMC last week. So looking at the value area, and we'll get into all of them right now and look at it. So the ES is above value area high, and so is the NASDAQ, of course, because it's, it's the strong one, 10,000. But if you look at the Russell inside of value, the Dow inside of value, overnight lows below the previous day's low, not quite to the previous day's low, below the previous day's low, and not even to the gap fill for the NASDAQ, right? The NASDAQ isn't even to the gap fill for the overnight low. It did trade the point of control. And remember, the point of controls are likely to trade, each day. So that'd be 32.08 for the ES. And when they don't trade during the day, we kind of track those to see where we think we might get pulled to in the future, because they should be retested sometime in the future. With that said, we have left quite a bit of those in our wake underneath. So as we look at where the untested points of control are, we have the one yesterday, because the session today hasn't started, so that's 32.08. Below that, we don't have anything to 31.10. So again, we've been picking these up this week and not leaving anything to be retested. So below there, you can see coming out of those March 23rd lows, quite a few below, but we still have quite a few above. The first one above is 32.96, and that actually goes back to February 4th. So again, looking at value, just have to take it as it goes. I don't know if the market's really expecting the Fed to say too much. We know they're not going to change rates, right? So it's all about what they're going to buy for us to help keep this thing propped up. And they might not really say too much. I don't know if the market's really expecting them to say too much to give them anything. So I don't know if normally what would happen is if we get a drive up in the morning, you get a fade back towards the opening print. So let's suppose we open at this 32.17 right now. Let's suppose we ramp up for whatever reason to 36. Between noon and 2, you would usually get a fade back towards that opening print. And you would, almost touch it or come very close to it. And the same thing, if you get an opening drive down, you're going to return back close to that opening print normally on an FOMC day. I don't know if that's really going to happen today. Just be aware that is the normal FOMC pattern for the ES. So looking at sequences overnight, you can see coming out of this 31.93 low, we've been very aggressive to the upside. and you can see that the shorts have lost their line in the sand out of that high that was 32.27 quarter. So nothing doing for the bears so far in the overnight session. Everyone wants a massive pullback, and I don't even think we can get back to where the news broke for non-farm payroll anytime soon. I think if we get back to there, we'll have bigger fish to fry. Until then, the market's going up. You got to just follow the current sequences until they break. And then when we rattle around like ping pong balls, usually those are ripe to break and we go back to the previous one. But until it happens, you can't count on it. Just keep trading level to level between those fibs. And then looking at the NASDAQ, again, the bears just demolished here starting around 7 a.m. And if you look at the sequence coming out of those for the NASDAQ, extremely aggressive. Looking at the Russell, the bears still haven't lost control technically overnight, but if you look at, the other two indices are bullish, even though the Russell is mildly so, it still held the line in the sand for the bulls and is holding an aggressive stance up as well. Looking at the ES, we hit our heads up here at 32.19 quarter, and again, going back down here, this is where the FOMC broke out. So the real support resistance I have is just a little bit under where the FOMC drive started up at 31.29. Until then, we can just kind of ping pong around in some of those other levels I started with when we were looking at the fibs, right? There's no real profile levels in here, so you have to look for other technical analysis to see what's happening. And then above us, right, it's really, we're in that vacuum that we were just looking at. There's not a whole lot going on where, we should have really took a pause for the cause right around 30.60, and we didn't. So now we've got, more upside. And again, we're now to this distribution up here, and there's no reason other than, a sequence failure that we're not going to go all the way back up here and basically over the next several sessions tag 32.96, so that would be almost 3,300. So looking at the NASDAQ now that we beat the ES all up. Oops, and it helps if I can type. Maybe one day I'll learn. So as we go to 97.44s, that's really the support I have in there. And then you can look below that. It's really hard to find profile support again. So I think you have to look at other technical analysis and swings. So there's really nothing profile-wise to keep you anywhere in here as far as a retracement. Sorry about that, but that's just the way it is. Looking at the Russell, again, we were just sitting here floating between 1344 or 1333.40 and 1582.30. We're just backing and filling it. And again, this one does have some levels that we could add on it, right? We've already checked off of this one once. So 1462.60, and then we could look back to this previous high, but I'm not going to put a whole lot of weight into it yet. But that would be the first check above there. If we do get something to the downside, that would be 1486.40. I'm going to dot that one out. And so looking at the Dow next, and the Dow has been a little laggy as of late as well. Right, it's not really been getting left, and it actually has some resistance above us on the chart now. On the near-term chart, that's going to be at 27,462 basically. And then again for it, there's no real serious resistance. As long as you're holding above 27,100, there's no real resistance. And you can see we checked back into that overnight, right? So we come back down here, we hit that level again, we bounce it up. There's no real resistance on this chart until you get up to like 29,000. So you got another 1,600 points, 1,700 points from where we are now until there's major resistance. That's not going to trade in a day or two. That's going to take several sessions. But as long as you're holding 27,100, that's just like the Russell. You're just filling this void and backing and filling. So looking back at the profile, looking for entries. Again, watch that draw till it breaks. Remember that draw does target up fairly high. So you got 32.47 is the first target if this current draw holds from 31.64 to 32.31 quarter. I hope this helps. If you like this technical analysis, please give the video a thumbs up, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.